Coming up on This Week in Procurement, nobody is coming to hand you a government contract. But right now, there are 5 agencies across 5 states that have funded budgets, open solicitations, and a decision to make. That decision can go to you. Plus, there's a tip that lifts up the scale. Welcome to This Week in Procurement, your weekly outlook on state, local, and education government contracting opportunities. I am your host, Abby Souffrant. Let's get into the top 5 opportunities that stood out this week. First up, out of the state of Ohio, we have a contract for vending machine services that's located in Upper Arlington. This is not a passive placement. The buyer has strict operational specs and a firm service level agreement that is built right into the contract. So the scope includes beverage and snack machines with healthy options, non-glass bottle requirements, 48-hour service call response, and units that must be physically secured to structure the vending machine process. Now, this is a great fit for our vending operators, our food service vendors, and our facility service providers that are already working in Central Ohio. And for these type of contracts, it signals that the buyer wants a responsive, accountable partner, not just a machine drop-off. Next, in the state of Minnesota, we have a waste and recycling service contract. Now, this is not a one-time haul. This is a 4-year contract with a $200,000 in potential value, which means approximately $50,000 per year. So the scope of this particular contract includes a 40-yard compacted container for both recycling and general waste, vendor-supplied compactors, organic collection twice a week, and a 24-hour emergency emptying window. So this is a perfect fit for our waste haulers, our recycling companies, and our facility management vendors with compactor equipment and campus experience. For these type of contracts, the agencies are signaling investing in long-term operational infrastructure, and they also want vendors who can keep up with the pace. Next, we have a contract out of the state of Hawaii for electronic Benchbook project services. Now, this is not a generalist writing job. The buyer needs someone who understands how courtrooms actually function. The scope of this contract includes legal procedures, checklists, scripts, and colloquies structured as 1-year independent engagement that is fully remote. So this is a great fit for our legal writers, our courtroom administrators, and even attorneys with judicial procedure documentation experience. This signals that courts are modernizing their internal infrastructure, and this opportunity is open to vendors anywhere in the country, not just in Hawaii. If you could use a remote contract, join us in the Under Contract Academy to apply for this opportunity. Next up, out of the state of Washington, we have a $600,000 contract for land surveying and services that are out of the city of Seattle. This is not a one-time project engagement. This is actually a 3-year contract supporting 10 years of planned infrastructure improvement across pedestrian, bicycle, transit, roadway, and traffic operations. And this is a project for a government authority that's in the city of Seattle. So the scopes include conventional land surveying, laser scanning and mapping, subsurface utility locating with potholing, UAS and LiDAR, as well as other survey and boundary surveys that are needed. Legal descriptions with exhibit maps and settlement monitoring. This is the best fit for our licensed land surveying firms, geospatial technology companies, and civil engineering consultants with proven infrastructure project experience in the Pacific Northwest. And this signals that Seattle is building a long-term surveying partnership, not just a one-time vendor relationship. They also have a non-mandatory pre-submittal conference that is scheduled for March 17th, where questions are due by March 20th, and a strong proposal is due by April 7th. Last, out of the state of Alaska, we have a printing and delivery of official ballots This is not a standard print job. This is an election infrastructure, and the margin of error is 0. Scope includes approximately 1.375 million ballots across a primary, a general, and a REAA election over a 2-year period, a contract period with all work performed off-site. So this is a great fit for our established commercial printers with government or secure document experience and the logistics capacity to serve a geographically complex state with a large budget of $2 million. Now this signals that Alaska is locking in a trusted high-capacity vendor well ahead of its election cycle, and they need proof of capability, not promises. Now our tip of the week is that buyers are telling you exactly what they want inside of their framework, aka their solicitations. But don't treat the solicitation information as a checklist, it's actually a conversation. Now let's take a look at our big map between March 6th and March 12th, 2026. Agencies across the country released a significant volume, again, over 28,000 new procurement opportunities. And that signals two things that are really dominant. Again, software contracts and the surge of pre-procurement activities lead all of these contracts that are out this week. Software led all categories nationwide, telling us that digital transformation is not slowing down. It's actually accelerating across every region. At the same time, marketing and bidding contracts signal a robust pipeline of future opportunities that are in active development stages right now. So agencies are exploring, scoping, and preparing, which means that vendors like you are really charged to get visible early, and you'll have such a significant advantage, especially when those solicitations decide to drop. Now let's take a look on the East Coast. The East Coast is not just New York and New Jersey this week, and that is exactly what I want you to pay attention to. So the states that usually don't make the headlines are actually showing quiet but consistent activity right now. Connecticut is posting education and consulting contracts that point them to curriculum support and program management needs inside of smaller municipal agencies. So this is the kind of contracts that tend to get overlooked, but the dollar amounts are modest, as well as the relationships they build are not. Maine is surfacing staffing and professional service opportunities, and that signals that agencies are dealing with capacity gaps and need outside support to help them fill that fast. So these are not our usual splashy contracts, but they are ones where vendors that are maybe a little bit smaller with the right niche can walk in with very little competition and a real shot at building long-term relationships. So on the East Coast this week, the underdog states are buying and most vendors are not even looking. Now heading over to the South, the Southern states conversation usually starts and ends with Florida and Texas, but there are states in this region posting significant contract volume right now that almost no one is talking about. The state of Kentucky is showing significant procurement activity in software, IT, and market research, reflecting a foundational effort to both modernize core digital systems and improve public outreach or data collection. This suggests vendors who can offer entry-level to mid-tier digital solutions, as well as targeted communication services. They have a clear advantage in this particular state. Also mimicking Kentucky's drive is the state of Mississippi, and they are posting contracts in excess as well in software, IT, market research, and media, which is a clear indication of similar clear pushes for digital services upgrade as well as data-driven engagement. Given its volume, the competition pool is thinner, rewarding vendors who demonstrate regional presence and a strong value for cost efficiency. So even though the South's smaller growth states reward and dual focus on technology and strategy, if you can show up with a modern digital solution, the advice to implement it, these underserved states represent a powerful growth market. Heading over to the Midwest conversation usually starts and ends with Ohio and Illinois, but there are states in this region that are posting contracts right now that are almost no one is talking about. So let's take a look at South Dakota. South Dakota is showing procurement activity in IT services and operational support categories. And that's a reflection that their state government is actually actively trying to modernize their infrastructures and their facilities on a lean budget. So that means that vendors who can demonstrate value efficiency, not just capability, have a real edge here. And states like Nebraska, they're posting consulting and as well as software contracts. Then they're tied to state agency planning cycles and competition. And in the pool that's currently in Nebraska, it's very, very thin. So compared to what you would face in a major metro market, your opportunity for a win in this area is very high. Iowa is surfacing food and facility related contracts that are consistent with its public institution footprint, such as school districts, county agencies, and state facilities that need reliable service vendors with local responsiveness. So overall, the Midwest rewards consistency over flash. And if you can show up, deliver, and document these underserved states, they will keep calling you back. And lastly, on the West Coast, everyone usually defaults to California, but we're not giving them any shine this week. The most interesting procurement signals this week are coming from the states that usually get skipped again in the conversation. So states like Oregon, they're posting software and professional service contracts that reflect the state government investing in digital service delivery for public programs, and the vendor pool competing for Oregon contracts is far smaller than the opportunity size suggests. States like Idaho are also showing lots of activity with IT equipment and operational services that are tied to state agency infrastructures, with buyers who tend to favor vendors that can demonstrate clear implementation timelines and local accountability. And then there's states like Montana that often are treated as an afterthought in the West Coast procurement, but they are surfacing with contracts in facility management, basic public services that represent some of the most accessible entry points for new vendors in the entire region. And if California feels like it's out of reach right now, it's because you're competing with everyone else. So don't leave out Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. This is where you want to compete, where you get almost no one and still get paid by a government buyer. Now we'll head over to our Dear Abby segment. Dear Abby, I keep second guessing my proposals. How do I know if I'm actually a really good bidder for this opportunity? Now, it's a very, very good question. I want you to know that buyers do not need a perfect vendor. They need a low-risk vendor. So the question is not whether you are ready, it is whether your proposal makes the buyer feel safe at saying yes. So try this framework. I help this agency achieve a specific outcome by whatever your process is, and here's the proof we have that we have done this before. That is your structure. Fill in the blanks with your actual work, not something that you plan to do, but something that you can show proof of concept for. Every proposal you write should answer one question before anything else. What does a successful vendor look like for this project? Because once you know that, you stop guessing and start aligning. Now that one question will do more for you and for your win rate overall than any template ever will. If you want clarity on your next best steps, take our government contracting readiness assessment. And if you want access to our top 5 contracts and our hand-selected pipeline, join us in the Under Contract Academy. That's it for this week on This Week in Procurement. Remember, opportunities are everywhere. I'm Abby Souffrant, and I'll see you next week.